Hi, my name is Esther Lunge, and I would like to share with you the testimony of how I survived a plane crash. On the 29th of October 2006, my life as I knew it changed forever. Grass, the plane had crashed. Now people ask me, did you black out? What happened? And I always say to them that before that day I believed in God, but that day I believed in the power of angels, because literally the same way I was sitting in the air is how I was landed on the ground. And you would say, okay, maybe all of us that were in that, segment of the plane, that's how we landed, but that wasn't true, because Esther, who was sitting beside me, the impact of the crash flung her somewhere else. And so it was like a dream. People always ask me, how did it feel? And I say it felt a little bit like a cartoon where you're like, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. But I did not know where I was, and I wasn't quite sure what was happening. And so because I like to travel light, I had my hand luggage under my seat, and it was still there, thanks be to God. At the time I had the Motorola Razr. I don't know if you remember that phone. So the clip was in my belt hole, and the phone was on the side. Picked up the phone, put it back in the clip, and then I started to feel my way out of where I was. As I was doing that, I heard somebody shout, oh, somebody help me, somebody help me. And it turned out to be the other Esther. So the impact had flung her somewhere else. And so I unhooked her from her seat, and she had a dislocated hip, and then we made our way out of the debris of the plane. Now we're in the plane, and we had no idea where the plane had gone, how far it had gone before this happened. So I did not know if I was in Kafanchan or in Kebbi. All I knew was that I was in the middle of a field somewhere, and it was raining, and I was just like, God, what is going on? Esther, when she saw that I had my bag with me, she said, oh, she had valuables in her own bag, and so she went back into the debris of the plane to go find her possessions. As we're still trying to figure out what was going on, I saw three ladies, one on top of each other, and the one on top was strapping the other two beneath her. These turned out to be the daughters of the Kogi state governor. Now, there was also another guy who was sitting on the floor, spread-eagled, and he was just looking. And I remember thinking to myself that, Uncle, please help now, we're all in shock here. It was after the fact that I realized that there was nothing he could do because both of his legs were broken. And so I was trying to remove the lady on top, and I saw things that I never want to see again in terms of bones showing and all of that stuff. And I remember her crying out in pain. And I said to her, you're alive, they can fix your body, but thank God at least that you are alive. Pulled her off, and then the one in the middle, because she was of Hausa origin, her wrapper had gotten entangled in her, because that's their native dress, isn't it? So her wrapper had gotten entangled with her seatbelt. So unhooked her, pulled her off, and then I went back to where we were standing. There was a lady who was standing, her hand, and her leg were broken, and she was crying about her brother. And I genuinely thought at the time that what had happened was the plane had broken in half. So we were on one side, and there was another side that had other people who were in a similar position as us. Because, the northern tradition is that, the men sit in front and the women sit at the back. So I just thought that they were on one side and we were on another. And I was like, you're alive, I'm sure they'll find your brother and your brother will be fine. But that was not to be the case. Shortly after, we saw villagers come out, and we realized then, because of what they had said, that the plane had crashed outside of the airport. But the people in the airport did not know that the plane had crashed just outside. And so the villagers ran into the airport to let them know that the plane had crashed, and also to find transportation for those of us that were able to walk. And so they came with a pickup truck to take me, the other Esther, and this Hausa lady that was crying for her brother, because we're the three that could actually walk on foot. So they took us in the pickup truck, and it was probably one of the worst rides of my life, because we're in the jarring, muddy field, and I just kept getting bumped about. And we got to the airport hospital, and I had an irrational desire to be as far away from the airport as possible. Because I got to the airport and it was mayhem. They were bringing in dead bodies. It was just crazy. And so I called my friends who had literally dropped me an hour or so before, and I said, this is what has happened. Please come and get me. I need to be out of here. And so they came to pick me up and took me to a private hospital, where the first thing that they did was to put me on a morphine drip because I had a banging headache. I remember one of my friends calling me, and I made small talk with her because I didn't necessarily want to let her know that I had just been in such an accident. I remember also my mother calling me, and my mother did not know I was on the plane, and so she said, oh, I heard that there's something happening, a plane that was bound for Sokoto crashed in Abuja, the airport must be crazy. And I said, yeah, the airport is crazy. I couldn't tell her that, her daughter was on that flight. And so I stayed in the airport, in the hospital, taking the drip and everything. But then it became apparent that I would have to go to the military hospital where the survivors were being kept, so that they would not think that I had died and they just didn't find my body. And in fact, earlier Wikipedia entries say, oh, Esther Amoda, one of the plane crash survivors, deemed dead, now alive. And so I went to the military hospital where they were keeping the survivors. And just to put it in context, of the 105 people that were on the plane, only 9 survived. And of the 9 that survived, only 1 didn't have any injuries, and that was me, to the glory of God. And so I was in the military hospital, and I was kept there for 3 days to make sure that I did not have any internal injuries, which I did not. And so the next morning, I wake up about 4 a.m. and CNN, is carrying the story, and I see what happened. I see the part of the plane that survived, and I am weeping. I am in tears. Because if you remember, I said I thought that the plane had broken in half, but that was not what had happened. In fact, the only part of the plane that survived was the tail end of the plane, and literally where the mouth of that, the part that survived hit the floor is where I was sitting. And I wept. I remember a nurse saying, why are you crying? You should be happy that you're alive. I'm like, that's why I'm crying. I'm crying because, I'm happy that I'm alive. And the ADC people, when they came on their courtesy visit, they said literally that was the only part of the plane that was intact. Everything else was broken pieces and broken bodies, and it was very overwhelming. And so I was there, and the question now became, okay, Esther, you are in Abuja now. Are you going to go back to Sokoto, which is 9 hours by road, or are you going to go back to Lagos, which is also 9 hours by road? Well, my mom made the decision for me. She's like, are you crazy? You're coming back home to Lagos. Okay. So the next question was, okay, how are you going to get back? I was ready to come back by road, but I remember a friend of mine saying at the time, he worked in Virgin Nigeria, and he said, the Lord did not save you on Sunday to kill you on Wednesday. You will come back by air. And I say that that's probably one of the singular decisions that actually cured me, or started to cure me, of my fear of flying. Because